This is a real type of get your supplies show.
Yes.
Hook up the catheter. Whoa. Oh. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com. And I will emphasize marathon matchups strategy show today, Thursday, December 15th. I'm Dave Loughran at Laffy_D, LOUGHY_D. Soon to just be Laffy. When Elon purges that dirtball that stole that in 2009, I'm taking Laffy back on Twitter. Until then, find me at Laffy_D. And while you're there, say hello to Matt Savoca at Draftaholic. Here along with me every week for the long haul to break down today a 3 and 10 game slate on Saturday and Sunday. But we're men of the people, Matt. We're giving them Saturday and Sunday. Anything they want, they got it right here in the next hour. And I don't know, you tell me.
You tell me. Yeah. We tend to be verbose because we want to cover everything, get you ready as you can with one podcast or one show to get you ready for both of these slates. But this is what we've been training for, Laffy and chat. This is where you've got the supplies. This is where you've got that stamina. And yes, there are some games that look disgusting on paper, that look like they may not produce a whole lot of DFS relevance, but we got to dig in. We got to do this. It's the thick of the holiday season. I'd rather be chugging eggnog, but I'm chugging coffee because we got a lot to get to.
Are you an eggnog guy?
Like at night after a bunch, like on a holiday night. Yeah. After I've stuffed my face already, I've made terrible decisions all day. It's like, yeah, why not another 1,000 calories? Matter. Yeah.
I used to be, but then as my palate just was like, oh, I could just, drink straight whiskey. No, then I was like, just give me bourbon, or you know what I mean? Like when you're younger, kind of a little treat, like, let me get some eggnog. It's got some alcohol in it. It tastes pretty good because I don't mind the taste. But then as you get older, you go, at least me, like one glass, get it. But like, I don't know if I want to fill my belly with dairy when I could just knock back a couple,
Oh, I hear you because, stomach can start growling for sure if you start making those kinds of decisions, especially late at night. But these are the kinds of sacrifices you have to make sometimes.
For sure. Or you just get the eggnog and you triple spike it, right? Like that's probably the play.
Mm-hmm. I kind of like turn it into my dessert, right? Like I get a glass of it and then I'll just like, pick at desserts rather than like a big piece of, cake or pie or whatever.
What's the okay? So I was trying to see what is in eggnog. They say most traditional is brandy, but you can add bourbon to it.
That's what I've typically done.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm gonna cluck that thing in there this year. We're gonna have some fun. Happy to have you guys with us. Happy almost Christmas holidays. When's Hanukkah start? Like the 19th?
I don't know actually.
18. Thank you. Jordan's Jewish. I should have asked him. The 18th. You going home, Jordan? Why did I think it was like 3-4 hours? Oh, okay. Anyway, happy to have you guys with us. We're doing it all here today, breaking everything down. Hit the thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Please, only takes a second. Helps us greatly. Subscribe to the channel. If you're listening after the fact, leave a comment down below. We try and read and respond to all of them. And if you're listening to podcasts, apologize. You had to hear that intro with zero context, having no idea what was going on. Very strange. But hey, leave a rating and a review. Subscribe to the podcast and tell your friends about the strategy show. Tell your friends about the channel. You know what they say? Word of mouth is the best form of advertising, Matt.
It sure is. I mean, what better ad than a friend saying it's good for you? And honestly, we're putting in time over here on the Stokastic DFS channel. So I think you're going to like what you see.
No question, man. Let's start with Saturday. We got 3 games. This is fun because I love 3-game football slates more than anything. Them and Monday night doubleheaders are my 2 favorite things in football. I just love it. Like Christmas basketball, sure. But a 3-game Saturday slate, pretty special. The games, on the other hand, not as special. We'll start it off with Minnesota at home against Indiana. I'll tell you, or Indianapolis. the books are begging you to take the Vikings here. The +4 says a lot to me. When a line seems too good to be true, it usually is. I think this game stays competitive. And if you're looking at the running backs on this slate, there aren't a lot of just smash spot running backs on a 3-gamer. It's hard not to like Jonathan Taylor against the Minnesota. Do you know the Minnesota defense? What are they, 10-3? Are they 10-3, I think?
I believe so, yep.
10-3. Their defense has allowed more yards per game than any team in the league.
I don't think that defense is even average. I think they're well below average. But when you run this hot from a randomness and a luck perspective, and yes, I said it, Minnesota fans, you're running hot. You're already in the playoffs, and now anything can happen. Ultimately, I look at this team and I say you got offensive playmakers, and we saw it with the way Justin Jefferson can play. There's shootout potential every single time this Minnesota Vikings team steps on the field, and I mean them and the other team. Jonathan Taylor has the highest expected fantasy points and opportunity value of any running back on the slate, this 3-gamer, as you would expect, but it's still just 16 expected fantasy points, right? At that price, at 7,200, we still need like 22, 25 points to feel really good about him in a tournament. And look, his ownership is creeping up towards 50% because, as you said, there are so few sure things at the running back position. I think this is a player that in Taylor, you could probably just straight up fade in large field tournaments. And it's one of the easiest ways to get contrarian, especially when I think Jefferson on the other side is still the better ceiling play straight up.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. All right. Now I don't necessarily disagree. Like I was building a lot of lineups, and a lot of them I just wasn't getting to Taylor because it can be kind of difficult. The problem I have with Jefferson, and I like Jefferson a lot. I mean, a lot, but it's going to be very difficult to play Jefferson and Diggs in the same lineup. Not saying you can't do it. Like if you wanted to go, I don't know, Dobbins and James Cook or so, you can make it work, which means that, naturally you'd be fading Chubb, Taylor, and Dalvin, almost certainly Dalvin Cook as well. We'll see. But man, Stephon Diggs, I think, and I'm not trying to bounce around too much here, but I think Stephon Diggs is underpriced in this spot.
He's a great value.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll get there. But that's what makes this 3-game slate really fun. It's like normally you can go, oh yeah, I play both of them. There's plenty of value, or just do that. On a 3-game slate, you got to be a little bit more calculated. And as you talked about Jonathan Taylor there, maybe getting away from him a bit, I think one thing I'm looking to do is not pay, I'm not calling it a premium, but not pay the premium in context of all of the wide receivers and pass catchers in Indy for Michael Pittman, but just go down to like a sub 4K Alec Pierce, maybe some Paris Campbell. I mean, Pittman's still the best player on this team from a pass catching standpoint, but the offense is so unpredictable. It's so erratic. It's oftentimes terrible. And the target share recently has been spread around enough for me to go, maybe I'll just save 2,000 so I can get to an actual good player on an actual good offense.
I think that kind of makes sense. So we should say that all of these top tier Colts skill players have projections ahead of salary-based expectations, including Taylor at his RB2 7,200 salary. Pittman looks okay from a value perspective, but as you said, the erratic nature, the way that this offense continues to shift, and honestly, the way that Jeff Saturday continues to get his feet under him as a coach. Please don't say Jeff Saturday on a Saturday. Don't say it. Don't say it.
And Pierce is half the ownership right now of Pittman too.
That is kind of what I'm getting at. Campbell or Pierce have pretty decent chances compared to Michael Pittman of hitting their ceiling potential. And you're talking about players in Pierce or Campbell who, if you got a dozen points, if you got 13 points from them, you'd feel fantastic about them at their given salaries. Look, the expected fantasy points are 6 and 7 respectively. So they have to catch a touchdown and they have to be efficient. But I kind of get it. If you want to go off the beaten path against a bad defense in Minnesota, I kind of see where you're going.
I'm not excited about it, but I would rather be able to get to some higher priced options, right? Because there are, while it's only a 3-game slate, you still have Jefferson, you still have Josh Allen, who is far and away the best quarterback option on this slate. Like we could talk about salary and everything and how it could, But just as far as like the best quarterback, it's clear against Miami. A few top tier running backs, several top tier receivers. You're going to have to make some concessions somewhere. That might be a spot for me to do it. I might even dabble with some Jelani Woods at 2,700 at the tight end position. Do you think we're at a point now where, I mean, Dalvin Cook 6,900. They've naturally priced him down in a 3-game slate. You can't, you have to price some guys out, and the wide receivers aren't at all. Does Dalvin Cook among Chubb, Taylor, and him rank first, second, third? Where is he falling for you among those top tier backs?
If I've had to rank them, I'd probably go Taylor, Cook, Chubb. If you just factor in all the risk factors, the defensive matchups, and the opportunity value, that's the order. But Cook is in a fine spot, honestly. 36% projected ownership for Cook right now. That's still less than Taylor. So if you're going to pick one of these running backs from a pure game theory standpoint, you could go with Cook, and you could say, to a detriment to Dalvin Cook this year would be that he hasn't gotten the same opportunity value, that same elite level opportunity that we've seen in the past from him. But still, on this 3-gamer with so few elite options, he's still number 2 among running backs in expected fantasy points per game. And the Colts are much easier against the running back position than the wide receiver, I will say, though I like just Justin Jefferson straight up. Dalvin Cook, the adjusted fantasy points allowed for the Colts this year, 22nd among 32 teams. It's a pretty good matchup.
I agree. I like Cook a lot. 6,900, easy to get to. The volume hasn't been as crazy, but he's still involved in the passing game. You could see 20 touches here for sure. I like Dalvin Cook. We already talked about, Jefferson is a great play. If you're spending a premium, then the guy just went the length of the football field 2.25 times without scoring and still had 36 fantasy.
And he should have had that touchdown. That should have been a touchdown.
Yeah. It should have been a 43 fantasy point game.
Yep.
But outside of Jefferson, you have Adam Thielen, who, look, Ben put it like this on Saturday, among Adam Thielen, and if you look at these other receivers in a similar tier, like Adam Thielen, DPJ, Gabe Davis, all of those guys in that same trio of 5K players around there. Gabe Davis has the highest ceiling. He has the potential to just go insane. He also probably has the lowest floor. Thielen's probably the most stable in that sense with the lower ceiling. But at the same time, Thielen's had some rough games recently too. So I don't even know if I can say that. Do you like him or TJ Hawkinson or KJ Osborne in the passing game?
I think I like Hawkinson better.
Okay.
I do. Both of them are at double-digit expected fantasy points over the last 6 weeks, if you're just looking at the opportunity value. But TJ Hawkinson's gotten more, and the usage has continued to rise. And now the salary, it keeps flip-flopping. After last week, Adam Thielen is now at 5,200, where Hawkinson is at 5K. Last week, it was flipped, where Hawkinson was a little bit more expensive. So I don't want to play actually, I was going to say don't play a bunch of receivers from Kirk Cousins' offense, but I actually think with this 3-game slate, we need to talk about the fact that there's a chance with that weather going on in the Buffalo game that this is the only game environment that you want to surround yourself with. So even though the opportunity metrics look so-so and the matchup looks okay, if this is the only game that scores more than 45 or so points, then we're going to want all these tertiary options we can get. In that case, Thielen, Hawkinson, Osborne, absolutely on my radar. Are in the largest field tournaments, players like Madison. You mentioned Jelani Woods. I think these become very relevant when this might be the only game environment you need to surround yourself with players with.
I think that'll probably drive me to more Buffalo, honestly.
I think that's a clear way to play it. If people gravitate to this game the way I'm talking about, then just say, all right, well, I'm going the other way. We saw it with last week, where Tennessee Jacksonville was kind of middle of the pack in terms of game environment expectations. All of a sudden, our boy Chig goes off. There's other, Lawrence goes off, Engram goes off, and suddenly that's the game you need to build around.
Yeah, for sure. It's saying like at night it's supposed to be 11-mile-per-hour winds in Buffalo. That's not too bad. Or in Orchard Park. We'll see. We'll see. I think it affects Tua a lot more than it affects Josh Allen. I can tell you that much.
That's what our tools say too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Kirk Cousins. Let me ask you this real quick. And we're going to, obviously we'll speed this up a little bit. With a 3-game slate though, you have to break more down. Like you have to get more granular than you would. And we'll move to the Sunday slate after we get through these 3. Matt Ryan and Kirk Cousins. This does have a 48-point total. Indy does have a 22-point implied total here. So this isn't to say that this game is just, like, oh, low scoring. Don't expect Indy to put up any points. Do you have any interest in Ryan or in Kirk Cousins as like maybe you're not as high on Josh Allen because of the weather than I am? Or as I
think Josh Allen could do just fine, even if he's unable to pass the ball because of his nearly reckless running style of late.
And let's be clear, this is not Patriots Bills last year where the wind was like 400 miles per hour.
Correct. But we can also talk about that Matt Ryan and Kirk Cousins from a projection standpoint have a really good projection compared to their salary-based expectations. Matt Ryan at 5,200, that's really cheap access to this solid game environment if you're thinking that this is the shootout of the 3-gamer. And of course, if you're going to play players like Jefferson or Hawkinson, or certainly 2 of them, I'm almost certainly stacking them up with Cousins as well, who's actually the 2nd highest projected QB on this 3-game slate.
Baltimore and Cleveland. Looks like Huntley's good to go. I don't see any reason to believe he won't be playing. Full practice coming off that concussion, apparently a mild one. I'm not enthusiastic about any of these pass catchers, but I like J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards this week as values. I like Dobbins a bit more. I think both of them are viable against one of the worst run defenses in football.
They are. Maybe I'm like not a good watch the film guy, but didn't J.K. Dobbins look weird on some of those runs? Like stiff?
Yeah. But he averaged 8 yards per attempt. So.
All right. I should probably just let that.
I know. No, like it did look, but maybe, I don't know. If you look stiff and you still rip off 120 on 15 carries, I'm going, all right, maybe he'll be better next week and give me 150.
With a backup quarterback. And, it's obvious that J.K. Dobbins is incredible from a vision standpoint because he was finding holes all over the place that we just have not seen Ravens running backs take advantage of that much this year. Yeah. Cleveland is 27th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position. And if Dobbins is going to command a workload like he did, it's going to look really, really good. But the bottom line is if you look at fantasy points over expectation, what did he do compared to the value of his opportunity? Dobbins scored 9 points above his expected fantasy points. So we're almost certainly going to have to see that converge. He's going to have to get more work or we're going to see less production. I think you got to say that Mark Andrews is very, very risky at this point, and the passing game is going to be tougher. Cleveland is actually 8th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing receiving cores. I get why you're gravitating towards the running back position.
Well, if you look at this, if you zoom out, excuse me, on this slate, it becomes a lot clearer why I'm interested, right? Because it's probably going to be Raheem Mostert against, with Jeff. I don't think Jeff Wilson's going to play. So that opens that up. Sure. I get that, but they are not a good running team. And it's also possible that they could be in a position where they have to abandon the run. I think Mostert will be fine, but I like Dobbins a little bit more. I think Edwards is fine. And I expect him. Let me see what the ownership looks like on him. Dobbins is at 21. That's not that high. 21%.
Running back 4.
Gus Edwards. Yeah. Gus Edwards at 10%. Yeah. I have Cleveland's run defense is putrid, much worse than that Pittsburgh run defense, even though they've sprung some leaks lately. But you look at it, it's like, okay, Devin Singletary, who is now in essentially a unpredictable backfield split with James Cook. Mostert, there's not a lot of value at the position here at all. So I think it kind of naturally funnels you to J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, at least me. So I don't really want to do much with the passing game. And then in Cleveland, we'll pay attention to Amari if he ends up practicing and he's good to go. But God, dude, Deshaun Watson looked horrible again last week.
Yeah, something ain't right now. And it's also draining the value from Nick Chubb, who's still pretty darn expensive on this slate, 7,400. I'm just looking at it, and outside of J.K. Dobbins, looking at the skill position players, we have so few players ahead of salary-based expectations in this game. You're taking a huge swing by saying this game shoots out, or one of these stacks, Cleveland or Baltimore in the passing game, are going to be super valuable. Right now, they are 5th and 6th in our top stack rating and our top stack probability. Kareem Hunt looks like a value. That's it, man. Like, David Njoku is at salary-based expectation. David Bell, fine at 3,100, but that's really because all you need is like 8 or 9 points, one big Deshaun Watson play to make it work. But I think even 5,100 for DPJ is a little suspect.
I do too. I mean, are we convinced that he's just going to have like another double-digit target game? This is why, again, when we need to zoom out on such a small slate, I would rather have Gabe Davis. I understand the weather. I understand that Gabe Davis hasn't been good. You know, I get it. He's also getting a bit more ownership, but looking at this slate, you know, where is the blow up potential? What do you think the likelihood is that you need a Cleveland stack to get there on this slate? Again, it can happen. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm not speaking I'm not trying to just be rigid about this, but it seems unlikely. And Baltimore's defense, for what it's worth, injured, banged up, sluggish early in the season, they've definitely buckled down. They're now top 10 in both run and pass defense DVOA.
They're straight up good now.
They're what we thought they would be going into the season.
Mm-hmm. I saw the same trend. Look, Donovan Peoples-Jones had 12 targets last week. If he has 12 targets again, he's going to be just fine at that salary. I just look with a 3-game slate, a 37-point total is something we have to talk about. But in a main slate, this is something we'd have at the very, very bottom of the show that we talk about right in the 5 minutes before we leave. And so while there is some talent here, if you said I'm full fading the big players in this game, I don't think that's a bad idea either.
Me neither. Do you include Nick Chubb there?
I'm really disappointed. You know, I think good DFS principles say this is a strong player whose stock is down, and now his ownership is kind of sagging 27% compared to the other top running backs. But look, since Watson came in, it's been atrocious. He's basically lost all his efficiency metrics that we're so used to seeing. Nick Chubb is at 0 fantasy points over expected per game over the last 6 weeks. We literally never see that. He's just at what you would expect, which is okay value.
Yeah. I have some tepid interest in Kareem Hunt, not because I feel good about it, just because I mentioned the running back position is really rough once you get down past these top options. And like Matt said, even Nick Chubb isn't really, you know, he doesn't stand out as a great play on this slate either. You need touchdowns from him for sure. Oftentimes you need multiple touchdowns from Nick Chubb, and he's done it plenty of times. Don't get me wrong. It's a tough matchup though. This run defense from Baltimore has definitely buckled down a lot. Kareem Hunt, you're going to get like 40% of snaps from him. Maybe he rips off a long catch and run or something, Matt. Maybe on one of his 7-8 touches or whatever it is, he gets there. But that's just like a Millie Maker play for me.
Yep. The bottom line is the Ravens are top 10 against the quarterback in adjusted fantasy points allowed, top 5 against the running back, and top 12 against the wide receiver and tight end position. A great defense. If no Cleveland DFS relevant players come out of this slate, don't be surprised.
Miami, Buffalo. All right, so we're wrapping up the Saturday slate here, and then we'll move on and segue over to Sunday with 10 games. Miami and Buffalo, I tell you, it reminds me, this is not apples to apples, but you and I were on a show together, so you'll know what I'm talking about. Remember our Thursday night football live before lock show with the Panthers and the Falcons, where it was like, oh, the weather, it's going to be horrible. There's going to be massive thunderstorms. The wind is going to be crazy. And then it was like oh, it missed us.
Yeah.
Or it didn't hit. It was like light rain and not really bad wind at all, because people, the talk was you can't play kickers. And I forget who it was, but he kicked like 3 40+ yard field goals. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here, but on a 10-game slate, you could go, yeah, I can look elsewhere. On a 3-game slate, I'm far more willing to take risks when you've got a guy in Josh Allen, who played college football in Wyoming, right? Like played college football in the elements, played his entire professional career in Buffalo. Put that game against New England out of your mind. Like the ball's not going to be going backwards when it's thrown. If you have like 10, 13 mile per hour winds, because you can't just look at the forecast for the day. You got to look at what it's going to be like at night. Right? It's an 8:20 game. From what I'm seeing now, and this could change, it's Thursday, it's going to be windy, but not windy to the point where it's affecting his throws to where you can't play him. Give me all the Josh Allen stacks that I can get. Even if you got snow coming down, I'm telling you, Matt, I'll take my L's if this doesn't play out or they just suck. But the matchup is too good. Miami is a warm weather team that literally sticks their stadium or built their stadium to where the sun blasts on the opponent and not drops them all dead like it did against Buffalo while they're sitting in shade for 3 hours. Miami had heaters on the bench.
SoFi. I knew you were going to bring this up.
SoFi, dude. And Jordan, you should have heard him the other day. Jordan's like, it was cold.
It was cold.
For LA, it's cold. You live in New York City. I like that. That's semi t-shirt weather. All I'm saying though is you're looking for a bit of revenge here after that game. You're at home. How cool is it this game though? I'm rambling, but because I get fired up about this. How cool is it that like the home game is early in the season? So for Miami, so like they get all of the benefits there. Seriously, heat strokes across the board for Buffalo. And now you got it in late December, right? In Buffalo, in Orchard Park, where Miami has to come and travel and deal with polar opposites to what they sicked on the Buffalo Bills early in week 3. I'm stoked for this game.
This should be great. And let's do a quick thought experiment. What would the total be like if Detroit handed their stadium over to the Bills again? What would the total in this game be?
That's a great
52.5?
No.
50 though?
I was going to say like 54.5.
That's the kind of offenses we're dealing with. So remember, when the totals say 48.5 for Indy, Minnesota, and 42.5 for Miami, Buffalo, and these could change by Sunday, it doesn't bring in the actual offensive firepower and potential of both of these teams. I think Josh Allen is the best overall play on the slate, and the ownership is lower than some of the skill position players. I think he's just a phenomenal play straight up. You don't have to play him with any other receiver. I think I would typically. And you mentioned right at the top of the show, Diggs is a really strong value at 8,100. Though his projection looks like it's right at salary-based expectations. When you compare him to the rest of his tier and you look at the matchups, you look at the rest of the expected ownership, suddenly Diggs looks like the best top-tier wide receiver value we have. I think he's a great play as well. You mentioned Davis. I'll also get to some Dawson Knox flipping touchdown, man. There was a wild one last week.
That was crazy, right?
And I'll go back to the well with McKenzie. It doesn't always work out with him, but a gadget player with the potential to get more snaps than we expect against the 20th ranked defense in adjusted fantasy points allowed. I think that's a really great tournament play.
Do you remember on Thanksgiving, 3-game slate? Do you remember who you needed to win a tournament that day?
When was it? Last year?
No, this Thanksgiving.
Oh, Thanksgiving. No, who was it?
Well, Isaiah McKenzie.
It was him. Oh, that was his huge blow up.
Remember he had that big game?
Oh, it's all coming back now.
I mean, all I'm saying is by the way, it means nothing for this slate. I was just furthering along your point to say that, like, hey, don't sleep on McKenzie. He can still have those games. He's still super cheap. He fits in the Bills stack tonight. That's the great thing about this Bills stack is Allen and Diggs are expensive, but if you wanted to go with an onslaught, you got a cheap Gabe Davis. I know he hasn't been good, but it's the Bills, and he gets a lot of deep opportunities. You got cheap Dawson Knox. You got a cheap Isaiah McKenzie. A lot of ways to hell. Even if the weather wasn't great, you want to throw out James Cook with Josh Allen on a 3-gamer. You might see some opportunities in the short passing game to James Cook. I think there's so many different ways to get creative with the Bills this week.
Absolutely. It's, DFS fundamentals say we can tie ourselves to the game environment with these tertiary options. But look, there could be that day that James Cook takes over the backfield. Why not? Why not this week? Look, I think Singletary will be involved, but I think he's maybe one concentration drop away from being benched for an entire half or the rest of the game. And Cook this might not mean as much on this type of slate, but he's inside the top 5 in our running back projections and outside the top 10 in salary. So if you're just looking for a great value play, I'd rather get to the Bills passing game. Don't get me wrong, but Cook looks fine. And in the largest field tournaments, I'll even still take shots on Singletary, who from an opportunity standpoint had his best game of the year against the Dolphins.
I'm assuming Jeff Wilson doesn't play. I could be wrong. This is Thursday, 11:30 Eastern time. I could be wrong. He's still not practicing though. It's going to force us to get to some Raheem Mostert, even if we're not comfortable with it, Matt. He's 5K, 5,300 or whatever running back. We'd likely see the lion's share. I get that. The passing game, I legitimately worried about. I'm worried about Tua coming into this game. I am. And plus, last week, even with Derwin James out, Tua still struggled. I mean, one of their points was a fluky recovery in the end zone. Tua has not looked good recently. And I think it's probably natural regression here that he's just not as good as he looked earlier in the year. It's not bad. I don't think he's, like they were talking Tua MVP conversation. That is long gone. He's probably not even top 5 right now in voting.
Sorry, Lepre, wherever you are.
Nick's objective though. Like he was in chat and he's like, "Oh, we're done. We're cooked." He might be like just dejected, but I'm not saying they're done. No, of course not. I'm just saying that I think the Bills rout them this week. The question though for you, do you realize how hard it is to get to Tyreek Hill in this spot if we like Jefferson? And I think Diggs per dollar is the best player on the slate.
I would agree with that. And look, as you said, the 9K for Tyreek Hill makes it really difficult.
Real tough.
I will say he's a clear pay up to be contrarian option because the Bills have a defense that is capable of being elite, but that's not what the numbers bear out right now. I know they're getting healthier. Trey White's in the picture. So if you want to say he shuts down Tyreek Hill, that's one way to play it.
Sure.
But they're 23rd in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. If you got a 25-point game out of Tyreek Hill here, it's probably because this game was a shootout, and even in a blowout, Miami still has the potential to break the roof off of a defense 1 or 2 times. Waddle is the one who I see as less appealing. But look, whenever you have a player as explosive as Waddle, under 10% owned on a 3-game slate, he has to be on your radar for large field tournaments.
Yes. And that extra $2,000 will take you a very long way. I will have some Waddle just for that reason. Like in these stacks, I know I'm going to get funneled to him. I know it. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. Especially if the weather's bad. If the weather's bad, maybe Waddle gets some more of those opportunities in the short passing game and does what he does with yards after catch. It's definitely possible. Mike Gesicki, I don't know why he has a minimum salary by now. I mentioned this to Ben on Tuesday. Like the guy, what is he, 3,400? And he has, what does he have? No receptions or targets over the last 3 games or whatever it is. He's unplayable. It's
if you just look at the last 6 weeks, he's under 3 expected fantasy points per game. So even if you just take the efficiency out of it, it's just no opportunity value. 8th among tight ends on this 3-game slate, please.
Like maybe some Sherfield, but is there anything else here?
I still kind of think you can take chances on a Bills defense just completely going ham when they're the 4th highest salary defense in 2,700. Even though there's shootout potential and big play potential from this Miami team, I also think there's risk of ruin.
All right. Dude, Nick just sent me. Nick Lepre is trying so hard to convince me to like Mike McDaniel. Like he's sending and every video he sends me makes me like him less. Listen, it's not a personal thing. It's just the quirky, it just doesn't resonate with me. That's okay. His players like it, and that's all that matters, Matt. I don't have to love it.
That's true. That's true. And also, we forgive a whole lot when teams win. That all looks weird the second you start to lose. Ask Russell Wilson.
That is true. I've been saying that though about McDaniel before the season started. It's not a personal thing. It's just it doesn't jive with me. But you're right. Like Russell Wilson, now everyone's realizing how weird and like in a way unlikable he is. That's a good point. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The Let's Ride wouldn't have been as much of a joke. It would have been a joke, but not as much of a joke if they were riding to a 11-2 record right now.
That's right.
Yeah.
If they were torching people, everyone would be zipping it.
Final thoughts on the Saturday slate before we move on, Matt.
Hey, I just think that we did a pretty good job. Look at us, almost
That's
30
good.
Minutes for a 3-gamer.
Not bad.
I just think that you have to consider game environments here where you use positive correlations once you've decided. You can use our top stacks tool, which has the Saturday top stacks this week over at Stokastic. Go in on a team, take options from that game environment, and then just get a few value plays that you like elsewhere, and you're done. That's really it for a lineup build.
Love it. Yeah. And if you wanted to get a further breakdown, like position by position, Ben and I did the Tuesday first look show. Neil and I did the Tuesday first look show for the Sunday slate. Now, grab your supplies. Get ready because it's Sunday main slate, 10 game. We're diving into all of it for week 15. We're starting with Pittsburgh and Carolina. This is one where I think, you and I always go down the list and we could probably save some time there. I think we could save some time there. Well, let's save some time out of the gate, Matt. Pittsburgh on the road against Carolina. Going to be cold there, by the way, like 35 degrees, I think. Not that it matters for Pittsburgh. Najee Harris, questionable, didn't practice, but I'm assuming he's going to be fine. And Kenny Pickett seems like he might be a legit questionable. What are you doing with Pittsburgh right now with the information we have?
I think they could legitimately be full of void.
Really?
Deontay Johnson.
I don't think you're
George
wrong.
Pickens, maybe.
I think Najee's kind of okay just because of how cheap he is. That would be.
But I still think Jaylen Warren. Like I don't think they expect Najee Harris to be the workhorse back anymore, especially when they're not really playing for this year. If they get into a game environment where they are up 7 points, yeah, they probably do lean on Najee for a whole half just to run out the clock. Freiermuth is probably the only one where I look at the opportunity value, the projection compared to salary-based expectation, and the matchup being pretty good. Carolina's 24th against opposing receiving cores, where I'm like, yeah, that all lines up for me.
You know what I do like, though? I'm always a sucker for, yes, he's a decimal back, but I'm always a sucker for D'Onta Foreman because I think Foreman is always a good tournament play. Matt, I'm going to break it down for you and tell you why, okay? The Carolina Panthers want to run the football because they can't do anything else. Okay. That's fair. Like right now, Sam Darnold is just going, I'll do what you want, coach. Happy to be starting again. You want me to throw 15 times a game? No problem. They have won 3 of their last 4. You know how many times they've run in those games? 46, 47, and 46 times. That's crazy. So even if you look at Chuba Hubbard and go, yeah, he's getting some work, D'Onta Foreman's getting a fuck ton of work right now. And he's live for 20 plus carries every single game. Now listen, why I'm saying it's a tournament play is if they can't run and the wheels fall off, this team is toast. But Carolina's defense has been pretty steady lately. Pittsburgh's offense is not all that impressive. They're not world beaters. And they've also, surprisingly enough, despite being one of the better, as far as DVOA metrics go, run defenses in the league, the last couple of weeks have not looked great. I mean, they gave up 215 rushing yards last week to Baltimore, 146 to Atlanta, and 110 to Indy. What do all those 3 teams have in common? None of them can throw the football either. So you know what the game plan is coming into it, and they still cough up a ton of yards. I think Foreman at 5,400, again, stagnant price every single week, is a guy in some milli makers in some large field tournaments that I'm going to get some pieces of.
Coming out of the gate hot. You say we're going to save some time here. I dig it, man. Look.
With Pittsburgh, we did.
Yeah, we did. It's true. Hey, Foreman's had, over the last 4 games that he's played, 2 double-digit performances. He hit 19. Actually, I think he hit 20 fantasy points in a game. There's some solid ceiling potential here when you talk about a 5,400 player. Projection ahead of salary-based expectations. Expected fantasy points right there as well. And Pittsburgh is 12th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position. I think he just gets enough opportunity, as you laid out, to make him viable in tournaments. And it looks like DJ Moore is going to play, but he clearly isn't 100%. Tweaked something in his knee, got an MRI. If he doesn't go, I mean, I suppose you could take shots on the Terrace Marshalls, the Laviska Chenaults, and the Shi Smiths of the world, but we're talking largest of large field tournaments only. None of those players have more than 5 expected fantasy points per game right now, so you really got to get lucky in the touchdown department.
Yes, no question. Tournament play, but at 5,400, anytime a guy, and mind you, they're favored here. And I know what you're talking about with pass catchers, but just the last thing on Foreman is it could go badly. Like last week, no touchdowns. He's touchdown dependent. 3-point favorites though, at home, low scoring game could end up being one of those just 23, 24 carry games, and he finds the end zone twice. I'll take some shots. Aside from that though, I think you did a pretty good job of wrapping this one up. So let me throw it back to you, Matt, with Philly and Chicago. Dude, how does Chicago, this is the question I'm asking. I want you to answer this question. How does Chicago stop this Philadelphia Eagles attack when they can do it on the ground and through the air?
The Eagles have no excuse to be stopped every time they walk on the field.
Especially
that's the level
Chicago.
that they're at. They're at SBOB status, Super Bowl or bust. That's the kind of team they have in the NFC, which all the other elite teams have clear warts on the profile, and you're scared of San Francisco, but they don't have a quarterback at the moment. Purdy's pretty good, but look, Philadelphia, the way they step onto the field offensively, should be able to trounce any defense. And Chicago, to their credit, no longer looks like the absolute atrocious defense that we thought they might be at the beginning of the year. They're not good. They're below average in adjusted fantasy points allowed. And look, the bottom line here is Miles Sanders could have a huge game at 6,500. AJ Brown, always a threat for 3 touchdowns, but their median projections when you run the Sims, they're only okay because they trade off ceiling performances with other excellent skill position players. Still taking tons of shots on Hurts Brown lineups, Hurts even Sanders lineups. Throw in some Devonta Smith for sure. They just don't look amazing. They don't pop off the page in our projections right now.
I went on a long tangent last week about how it was a Miles Sanders setup type of game. I'm going to go right back to the well and say this is also a Miles Sanders game. The Chicago Bears are 32nd in total defense at DVOA. They're 31st in run defense. This run defense is so bad.
But it's resulted in efficient performances, but not actual huge DFS performances all the time. So it's possible. Sorry to cut you off, but
that's fine. Are you talking about with Sanders?
Yeah, the possibility where he needs to still run hot, because I worry that there may actually be a little bit less in terms of opportunity.
What makes you think that?
That they can break off a few big plays, but they don't need actual heavy usage from him, is kind of the idea. His expected fantasy points, 11.5.
That seems so low.
It is. It's 4.5 fantasy points over expected per game, meaning he's, that's 75% of a touchdown above his expectation per game. So he either needs more usage, which I'm a little bit worried about, or he has to keep being efficient. Certainly possible against the Bears.
Yeah, it is. Look, this guy this year is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's 8th in goal line carries. He's tied with Nick Chubb. Granted, Jalen Hurts is 2nd in the league, which is pretty hilarious. But I know between Hurts and Sanders, they have 30 goal line carries. I just still look at this as a spot where I say, he probably, like, even if they go up early, they're not going to Gainwell until later in this game. They were up by 1,000 points against New York, and they ran Miles Sanders midway through the fourth quarter to get that 40-yard touchdown. Now, granted, that they were also trying to get him his 1,000 yards on the season. That's not lost on me. But I still think I still think the volume could be there in this game. Even like 17 touches, 16, 17 touches in a matchup as good as this with an offensive line as good as this. And I get where you're coming from. Don't get me wrong. I'm not negating anything you're saying. I still think it's viable though at his current ownership.
100% agree with you there. If you don't have a top tier Philly skill position player on your radar against the Chicago Bears defense, I think you need to rework your DFS fundamentals.
That's a good way to put it.
They're clearly on the ceiling list every single week right now.
That actually sums it up nicely. You're right. Like it's a matter of, you don't have to have Sanders or you don't have to have Brown, but if you don't have any of these guys as 9-point favorites against probably the worst defense in the league. I mean, over the last calendar month, right? Chicago, that defense has not unraveled. They have completely fallen apart. There's nothing left. They've disintegrated. So I need pieces of the Philadelphia Eagles. The only thing that could happen that goes bad, and it's definitely possible, is like they just spread it around a lot. But even so, if that's the case, Hurts probably still has a big game.
The one concern, the way this all goes south, right? Because anything can happen in a one game environment when these two teams meet, is if Fields is able to either create a ton through the design rush or the scramble game, allowing the game to stay relatively neutral, stay close, allowing the Bears to run much more than they pass, which lowers the play total for the entire game, which means that Philadelphia then has even lower chances of hitting their ceiling because they are expensive. But
like the game against the Commanders.
Exactly. Yep. But bottom line is, from a pure talent perspective, Philly should be playing this team off the field.
I think Goddard's viable too, assuming he's back on and not limited.
But he's tight end 2 on the slate, like in terms of salary. He is right up there again.
But hold on, isn't he like $3,000 cheaper than the tight end 1?
That's probably true, but it's still it's 4,700. So what is the pricing? Yeah, you're probably right.
I think Kelsey's like 78.
Kelsey doesn't even count. Like Kelsey's just a weapon at this point. Right. I happen to be able to play a tight end.
I get what you're saying. I don't love him, but like if you're stacking Hurts, that Goddard play might actually be welcome salary relief for you if he comes back and he's not limited. But yeah, there's a million things you can do with it. On Chicago, the issue, like, okay, if they come into this game and they go, all right, well, we're facing the number 2 ranked pass defense in the league. We have Chase Claypool, and he's not even practicing right now. Cole Kmet, like those are their pass catchers. Does Philly not, and I'm not saying it's going to work because Justin Fields is spectacular in that sense of rushing the football. Like, do they not come into this game and just go apply constant pressure? They lead the league with 49 sacks. They've been insane lately. Do they not just come in and constantly beat the shit out of this offensive line and just try to annihilate Fields before he can even finish dropping back?
That means that the only saving grace for Chicago is if Fields can make magic happen himself.
Right.
It's really the only solution they have. They've got no one in the receiving game. I don't actually think Claypool's going to play.
Oh, you don't think he plays?
I think they even said that he might. He's still a far ways off. Even if he does, you're still talking about a receiving core of Chase Claypool, Dante Pettis, Equanimous St. Brown, and Byron Pringle, none of which over the last 6 weeks have more than 5 expected fantasy points per game in the weeks that they play. Kmet is the one who has at least a projection near salary-based expectations, but that's because he's 4K and he's 4% in terms of projection ownership. If there was one skinny stack I would use for the largest of large field tournaments on the Chicago side, it might be Fields Kmet.
Yeah, me too. I thought Eberflus was talking about Fields not being there yet, learning the playbook. I could be wrong, but.
Oh, okay. Claypool, you mean?
Yeah, Claypool. Sorry, I could be wrong. I thought I read that earlier. I may
Did not
I may
practice yesterday, Wednesday.
yeah, may have misread that. But Kansas City and Houston. Matt, it looks like Nico Collins is trending towards not playing again. It looks like Brandon Cooks is doubtful. Dameon Pierce is doubtful. Truth of the matter here is, yes, Kansas City is going to have a massive implied total. They're going to score points. But now it's up to us to figure out who the hell it's going to be. And let me add fuel to the fire here. Kadarius Toney's expected back. Mecole Hardman is designated to return from the IR, and Reed said they're going to ramp him up throughout the week so he can play. Now, good luck figuring that shit out when you've got all of those guys. And hey, lest we not forget, Jerick McKinnon is also still there, obviously, after last week. It is so tough to figure out who it's going to be week over week with Kansas City, even when they're in good spots.
Absolutely agree. You know what the best way I think this week to play Kansas City is? If you have the bankroll or whatever level you're at, if you have the guts to just take 150 lineups in an MME and go 100% Patrick Mahomes, then maybe you can get all the combinations you might need. But look, it might actually be viable this week. They're 31 to 32 points, depending on what book you're looking at in terms of implied total, represents nearly 2/3 of the total points expected to be scored in this game. Because of this Chiefs' insanely high implied total, this game is still the highest total game on the slate. It's relatively middling in terms of these top totals this weekend. But look, I think a 40-point game from somebody on Kansas City, possibly not named Travis Kelce, is clearly possible again. We just saw it from McKinnon last week. But if you've only got 5 lineups, this is so damn tough. Juju looks like a value. I can't believe I'm saying it. MVS at his price point looks like a value. And you can go back to the well with Pacheco or McKinnon.
I think I might just go to Pacheco here. Like that might be, sure, honestly, might be my preferred way to get exposure here. The only issue is that what is Jerick McKinnon's role going to be? That's what sucks about it, because Pacheco against the Rams, right, in a game that 26-10, but at no point ever was that game in jeopardy, right? Like if you watch that game, the Rams, credit them, they made some stands inside the 10, like 3 of them. So it could have gotten really out of control. Pacheco had 22 carries in that game. He's not going to get a ton of work in the passing game, but 3 targets last game, 2 the week before, 5,900. Pacheco might be my way to get exposure to this. Not that I won't have any of the pass catchers, but at least I know he probably touches the ball 15 times with a 32-point implied total.
I like that call, especially because Houston has kind of turned into a little bit of a run funnel defense. They're number 3 in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver and tight end position this year. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
They're 24th against running backs. We saw Pollard and Zeke get there without the wide receivers getting there last week. That was kind of a weird game environment for Houston. Look, every time Mahomes steps on the field, his playmakers can have huge games. But like you outlined, outside of Kelce, who is 7,800, really, really tough to get to, but not impossible. This just gets so tough unless you have so many lineups to kind of mix and match the kind of variations you need.
Agreed. And you know what? We might have to look at some Chris Moore this week or something. Like the problem in the backfield is, do you go Dario Gumbawale? Do you go Rex Burkhead, who had those goal line opportunities after Pierce went down? It's tough to say, but what a dreadful implied total on this team. Nothing looks good right now.
So really, these players should be on your list that they could go for 3x their salary, right? Because you just need, like a 13, 14-point game from Burkhead or a Gumbawale, or even more at that price. Even a dozen points from those players you'd feel okay with at their relative salary. But the idea of 20 fantasy points, 25, so low probability. The Chiefs quietly 10th best in the league against the running back position, and that fantasy points allowed metric, a little bit worse against the pass. But if you told me that this Davis Mills, Jeff Driscoll combination made no fantasy relevant skill position players, would not be surprised.
Agreed. Greg, sorry I missed that super chat earlier. Thanks for sending that, Jordan. Greg Barker said, Njoku not a relevant play in the Cleveland game. I forgot to even talk. I like David Njoku a lot at his price point at a weak tight end position for Cleveland. Yeah.
I think we mentioned him really fast, just
You
kind of
may
saying
have,
that
yeah, I did.
he's the only one who, compared to his salary, actually looks like his projection makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely like David Njoku. He played 96% of snaps last week. Like this guy's
that works.
Yeah, he's going to be on the field a lot. He's a red zone threat, super athletic, and he clearly has a bit of a rapport with Deshaun Watson right now. I like him. Okay. Dallas and Jacksonville. Man, Dallas almost didn't win, like legitimately almost didn't win that game. If Jacksonville doesn't run these, like they ran in the wrong direction, I'm pretty sure. Was it Driscoll? What was it?
I think it was Driscoll. Yeah, their game, man. They tried to Charger. They tried to lose the game, or maybe we should change it to Raider now.
Yeah, I think they should have though. They were 1-10-1. Like go for the kill shot.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was funny. I was with the buddy at the bar who was live betting the Texans and just imploding.
Ooh,
it looked good there for a minute.
It did. Dallas, man, that was ugly. But hey, 4-point favorites in this one. I don't really feel like I want to pay for Tony Pollard at north of $7,000. Like at this point, he's getting fewer touches than Zeke. He's just better than Zeke, and he's getting more efficient, and he's more efficient. But like, do you want to pay $1,500 or $7,100 for 15 carries? Maybe I'm seeing this, or 15 touches. Maybe I'm looking at this all wrong.
There are only so few players every year who can actually maintain a level of efficiency that is so absurd that it'll eventually come down, but it doesn't have to within one season. Tony Pollard's at 7 fantasy points over expected per game over the last 6 weeks. And his opportunity value, his expected fantasy points, is still top 6 among all running backs, but Zeke is right there at number 3, and Zeke has been efficient too. The way our projections see it right now, even against a Jacksonville team that is in the bottom tier of defenses against the run, it's kind of point chasey to go to either player. Not saying you can't, but it looks like the passing game has better values opening up for us. And remember, Jacksonville had a bunch of players who were having huge DFS ceiling performances, partially because their defense is so bad, giving up big plays. They're 29th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing receiving cores. I think CD could have a huge game here. I think the salary is just fine at 7,300.
Me too. He's popular, but I like it. This game could shoot out for sure.
Absolutely.
What's the total on it right now? 48 or something?
Yeah, it depends on where you're looking at. I see 47.5 some places.
Okay. I think DK still has an 48.5 up. At least it did when I made this earlier today. It was 48.5.
Oh wow.
Trevor Lawrence, despite that gruesome looking injury the week prior, and then coming in after only practicing a day or two, looked awesome. Really did. Laid waste to that Titans secondary. The one thing about this game that really intrigues me is the Jags have done a good job of protecting Lawrence this year for the most part. Like pass protection has been good. What do you need to compete against the Dallas Cowboys? You need good pass protection. You can't let them beat you up. You can't let them win in the trenches. You can't let Micah Parsons get crazy. I tell you, I wouldn't be surprised if we shoot out here. The only tough part is like, do you want Kirk? Do you want Zay Jones? ETN is so tough for me to get to. The guy wasn't targeted a single time last game. That is tough. Like they don't want to use him in the passing game right now. So what do we go with at Jacksonville?
I think you laid that out really, really nicely. The offensive line has been a pleasant surprise. In PFF's pass block team grade, Jaguars are 4th in the NFL right now. In pass rush grade on defense on the other side, Micah Parsons is coming. They're number 2. Dallas is in that pass rush grade on PFF.
Who's number 1 now?
The Eagles.
Okay. Makes sense.
That defensive line, man, when healthy.
Crazy.
Trevor Lawrence looks so comfortable all of a sudden. And I was looking at, again, not the best film grinder out there, but I'm trying to get better, looking at that all 22. And we talked about the Tennessee defensive line being a problem for some teams. 2 things I saw. One, they were respecting Trevor Lawrence's ability to scramble and often had defensive ends playing on the outside, just setting the edge so he could not straight up run. But Tennessee's interior line is good enough to create pressure on their own. Lawrence is starting to look like a pro back there in terms of his ability to make things happen. He's at 3.9 fantasy points over expected per game. That's QB4 in terms of efficiency. He's now QB5 on the slate in those same 6 weeks in terms of point per game. I really think that his 6K salary is on the way up, to be honest. And we now know who you can pair him with. Kirk, Jones, Ingram. I think if you look at these two backfield members, I think ETN is more injured than Lawrence at the moment. So I'd rather go with the passing game. It's going to be a tough matchup, but I think there's shootout potential here.
It's a nice price on Lawrence too. 6K is not bad at all. I'm with you. Eric said that Jacksonville's the team that flops every time the public buys in. I do not disagree. I mentioned that on my betting video yesterday. You check it out on the Odd Shopper channel too. Picks for every game. Took me forever, but we got through it for week 15. Yeah, like Tennessee, they come out, they crush them. Detroit, they get annihilated. But the week before that, amazing, miraculous, come from behind win against Baltimore to beat the Ravens. And then they lose to Kansas City, fine. But then they were down 20-3 the game before that against Las Vegas. They come back and they win 24 unanswered points. You're right. This team, very difficult to predict, no doubt about it. But from a DFS perspective, and I'm pulling this up right now, you talked about it a little bit. Is the public really buying in? I get that. They really not. Lawrence 6%.
Yep.
Kirk 7%. Like ETN's the highest right now at 12%, and he's probably my least favorite on the team. I don't know.
Projection's okay. Like he looks like a projection value at 6K, but the opportunity, there are real concerns from an opportunity standpoint. I don't know what else to say.
Agreed. All right, let's keep it moving here. We got Detroit and the New York Jets up next. Fun game to talk about. Before we do though, Matt, how about the fact that at Prize Picks, we're giving you a free month of Stokastic plus Platinum and $100 first match deposit bonus.
Boom, boom. Talk about value right there.
It really is insane value if you think about it. Like, you get all of the tools that we have over at Stokastic, not just for DFS, but for Prize Picks too, because we have the player prop projections and everything. But you're also getting all of our tools, including the brand new lineup generator, which we just continue to add incredible stuff to. I mean, it's getting better and better by the week for every sport, ownership for every sport, projections, the top stack tool, the boom bust tool, all of that. You're getting an entire month free. It's $120 value. And the best part of all of this is when you got to use the link, by the way. If you don't use the link, we can't give it to you because unfortunately, we can't take your word because too many people come and try some slimy stuff. But I know you guys aren't like that. Use the link, sign up, deposit, get up to $100 first match deposit bonus, get the free month. Usually when there's offers as good as this, there's some catch and it's like, oh, this site kind of stinks. Prize Picks is sick. It's pretty sweet. And it's blowing up for obvious reasons. You're not playing against sharks or optimizers either. Like if you hit all 5 of your picks, it's just building lineups with props. You 10X. They got the 6 now too. I think it's like 18X or 16X or so. Somebody can tell me in chat if you hit all 6. If you hit 4 though, you still 2X. If you hit 3, you still make your money back. So you're sustaining a bankroll. You're giving yourself an opportunity for massive wins. And you can mix any sport you want. If you know football and basketball, and college sports, put them all into the same lineup. Check it out. I'm pretty certain you guys will love Prize Picks, especially if you're in non-legal betting states. Use the link at 25X. Brandon and RBC Brian said 25X if you hit all 6. That's pretty sweet, dude. So, yeah.
And we see this all the time, right, Laffy? Where like people take advantage of our 1 month free, and suddenly they take a big W, whether it's in DFS or on Prize Picks, with that deposit bonus and the free stuff that they get, and suddenly they basically got paid a couple K to get a free month and to get onto a new site. It happens all the time.
It's a beautiful circle of life. Like you go over to Prize Picks and you can use our tools there, which you got for free. And now you're winning on Prize Picks. And now you also have the free subscription, which you can use on DraftKings. All right, check it out. Links in the description. Link is in the pin chat. Let's talk about the Detroit Lions and the New York Jets. And for those of you guys jumping in late, we covered the Saturday slate first. Now we're doing the Sunday slate. Let's go with the Detroit Lions. I've been backing the Lions all year long, Matt. I know you and I have been on a pretty similar page here. I think I'm jumping off the bandwagon just for this week, and then I'm going to jump back on, and they're going to run the table. They're going to lose this week, and then they're going to run the table, and they're going to make the playoffs under big Dan Campbell.
I like that call because the Jets defense is not only legit, you can make an argument that they might be the best in the NFL right now.
They're definitely top 3.
PFF's team defensive grade has them like 4% better graded than any other team right now. The
They're
Philadelphia
awesome.
Eagles, by the way. Look, there's
Think about
always
this.
Yeah,
Real quick. All I was going to say is the last time, and hey, we know like the whole thing was the Lions can't play outside of the dome, but then they came and they got 2 wins, but that was the Giants and the Bears. The last difficult matchup they've had against the defense, right? So like, listen to the last several matchups. Minnesota, you mentioned bad defense.
Mm-hmm.
Jacksonville, that Jacksonville team is so hit or miss, but they've coughed up a lot of points. Buffalo, they've been okay, but nowhere near expectations. I think you mentioned that as well earlier. Yeah. Giants defense stinks. Chicago's probably the worst in the league. Green Bay Packers aren't good. And plus, the Lions only dropped 15, and Aaron Rodgers was the Lions' best defender in that game. Then Miami. So the last time they faced the tough defense was back-to-back games in October against Dallas and New England. They lost those games by a combined score of 53-6. Now, I'm not saying that happens again. What I am saying, though, this is by far the toughest task defense against the defense that they've had in a very long time.
And look, maybe they figured things out offensively, but this is the most likely outcome. Disappointing compared to salary-based expectations because they're way up there now. Goff's at QB 8, 5,700. Look, the one thing I can say is most people are looking at this the same way. And so his ownership, despite having some blow up weeks recently, it's just 4%. I'm on Ross St. Brown, still up there though. 17% expected ownership, wide receiver 1. I can't see it going against a great secondary right now. He's going to be, I thought he was going to be contrarian, but he's not. And even these running backs who, especially Williams, have run hot for the last couple of weeks. I think you could just kind of pass on this week and for good reason.
Man, we're on the same page. Yeah, I think you can too. And I tell you, this game opened at 48. It was bet down to 44.5. Cold weather game outside of the dome. Amazing defense. Sauce Gardner, just clear defensive rookie of the year right now. This team is no joke. You mentioned the PFF number. They're no joke. I don't want to pay for Amon-Ra St. Brown. If it bites us in the ass, fine. But it's not like we don't have alternatives at the position, right?
I totally would if he was unpopular, but he's still the most popular wide receiver, at least the
and
way
he's
our
not
tools are
cheap.
seeing it. I could get to him at 7,800 as a contrarian play.
No, that's what I mean. I'm saying he's high owned and he's expensive.
Can't do it.
And the backfield, who the hell knows? I'm off Detroit this week. It could bite us in the ass, Matt. You know what? If Detroit comes out here and puts up a bunch of points on the Jets, we've already said, hey, this offense is good. If they come out here and they put a bunch of points up on the Jets, we really need to start we really need to start recalibrating the way we look at this team from like, hey, they're good to, whoa, this is like something's happening here. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's going to happen though. Just saying. I don't think
they're going to peg if they win in like a shootout here, they're going to peg off, dude.
Oh my God. Dude. Oh yeah. Like I wouldn't want to face them in the playoffs if they made it in and they go on the run the table. Would you?
If they're that hot, no, I don't want to face any team that hot.
No, I like Garrett Wilson this week though. I'll tell you that much. Assuming Robert Saleh said he's preparing as though that he's going to start. I like Garrett Wilson this week a lot.
I like Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's going to be a stud in this league for a while.
Oh, he's sick. Yeah.
And we've talked about this. He's still on that rise. Remember, every rookie who turns into a superstar, or any player who goes from that star to superstar their salary continues on this stair climb all the way up. And we're still going with Garrett Wilson. We're going to wish we got Garrett Wilson for $6K one day is what I'm really trying to say. And dude, I really like Mike White. This guy is fearless. Those plays where he got hit First of all, he was throwing dimes on some of those plays, and he's getting absolutely obliterated to the point where we were watching it and you go, how do you not just like pause it at this moment where his body is in the shape of a letter C flying backwards and just completely ream out the offensive line? There's just no way that can happen on a football field. I think he's better than people realize. He's 5,400. The Detroit defense is not good against the quarterback. I actually think Mike White has some ceiling potential here.
I agree. Begrudgingly and fearfully. I agree.
The weather has to hold up. It has to just be mediocre.
Yeah, I think it will be. But hey, I mean, if Corey Davis is out, you have to you have to look at Eli Moore. I think Conklin's perfectly reasonable too.
Yep. All these players, look, this defense is good enough where if you have an average efficiency quarterback, even with the weapons they have healthy right now, they can stay in every game. I can't believe I'm saying that about the Jets this year.
You're right, though. Even with Mike White.
I think White should be able to at least compete for the starting job with whatever mess they have going on next year.
Imagine if Zach Wilson was as advertised. This team would be ferocious.
Absolutely awesome.
And maybe one day, but it seems unlikely.
I'm just worried they're going to go get Wilson or something.
That's going to sting so bad if it's like they're literally just a quarterback away from being Super Bowl contenders and they just drafted one second overall in 2021. That's going to sting so bad. I mean, that's Denver too. That's Denver as well. Yep. Painful. But hey, keep it moving here. Atlanta, I think we both agree. New York, pretty nice spot this week.
Mike White is 4th among quarterbacks in expected fantasy points per game since coming in.
Is he?
That's insane.
Wow.
He's performing a little under expectation, but the expectations, the opportunity value, it's really high.
Man, he's had some nice matchups too. He got Chicago, then he got Minnesota. Now he gets Detroit. Not bad. Atlanta, New Orleans. I have one play from this game. One play, Matt, and that is going to be Alvin Kamara. Neil talked about it, kind of talked me into it yesterday, because as gross as it is that he scored in one game this season, it's almost impossible to think that can happen.
It was a 3-touchdown game, right? But it was just all happened in one. It
was the Raiders game where they won 24-0. I still look at this and go, rookie debuting quarterback in Desmond Ridder, one of the better pass defenses in the league for New Orleans. Now, the run defense has not lived up to expectations, but that would be the only way that Atlanta competes here. Now, listen, I'm not, far be it for me to say that I'm confident in the New Orleans Saints offense. I'm not, okay? They're sticking with Andy Dalton. It's a tough team all around. But one thing that really piques my interest is that when Mark Ingram was out in those 2 games, Alvin Kamara was on the field almost the entire game. So am I willing to say, all right, this is probably the cheapest he's going to be for the rest of the year, even though he hasn't been good, but he played 88% of snaps when Ingram was out in week 9, 72%, but Ingram played a little bit in that game, and then 80% in week 10 with Ingram out. I think this could be another 80% type game for Alvin Kamara as 4-point home favorites, divisional spot. Eventually, he's going to have another one of these games, even if it's only one more on the season. I'm willing to take some shots at, 68, 6,900 that it could be this week.
Yep, he's 68. That means you need a 20-point game, but you don't need a 25 or 30-point game to feel like he's a true value play this week. And obviously, he's Kamara. He's got 30-point potential in a solid matchup. The Falcons have actually moved up to 16th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position, but by no means are they a good run defense. Here's my overall concern about this game from a game environment standpoint. Late season divisional matchup, we often see lower scoring than their implied total. That's just a general thing we see in the NFL. And also, these 2 run-heavy teams, if they are anywhere near efficient, the concern is the total play volume goes down for everyone. So you need efficiency or touchdowns from someone, Kamara would obviously be first on my list in terms of people who would get to do that. He's got a projection ahead of salary-based expectation. I like him better than Olave. Certainly like him better than players like Jarvis Landry, Taysom Hill, who I would reserve for the largest of large field tournaments. He makes sense. He's not my favorite, but at 6,800, absolutely fine taking shots there.
Yeah, he's not my favorite either, but at that price, like you said, it's not like if I get to some Alvin, it wouldn't be shocking if Alvin Kamara has a big game, despite the fact that he's had some very ugly games recently. And to be fair, you face San Francisco defense, face Tampa defense. I know Tampa got rocked by San Francisco, but still, it's still an above average defense. Like he's had some tough, difficult matchups of late. I don't really want anything else from this game, though.
I think you could take random large field shots on Desmond Ridder. I saw some love for him in chat. Cordero Patterson, he's one of those players who the numbers just don't point me towards, and then he breaks like a 70-yard run, and I can't explain it.
The problem is he's not involved in the passing game anymore.
I don't get that at all. Here's what I'm hoping, and I saw that some people in chat were talking about this. What if Mariota was so bad that he wasn't actually seeing the value that is there for the skill position players, and we actually see a revitalization of some of these things, like Cordero in the passing game, like maybe just Drake London showing up at all? Look, these are low probability plays, but in tournaments, we have to kind of consider it. London and Cordero have projections right at salary-based expectations.
My honest answer to that is that we're still talking about a third-round rookie quarterback, and the track record for those type of players is not good.
Pretty mediocre.
Pretty mediocre, yeah. We'll see. Can't be much worse than Mariota, but can he be worse than Mariota? Yeah. Could he be better? Sure. But like Mariota's not the floor here, is all I'll say.
Right, like multiple turnovers and just no red zone attempts. That's in the range of outcomes when you're talking about a mid-day 2 backup.
Like Mitchell Mayhouse says, Mariota is trash in all caps. Yeah, sure. But like, just to make the assumption that Ridder is going to be better is actually just, it's objectively wrong, actually.
It's bad process. Even if it ends up being correct, we'll know that once we get numbers.
He's never stepped on the field in a regular season game, is all I'm saying. And he's a third-round pick, rookie pick, with little weapons to speak of in the passing game. We'll see.
Yeah, and it's fun. Like the best scenario is we're wrong, and we have a great new player to root for as fans of the NFL.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be fun, right? Dude, Jalen Hurts, I'm going to tell you something that'll blow your mind. So Jalen Hurts right now leads the MVP, odds on favorite for MVP, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's the 54th highest paid quarterback in the league.
Oh my gosh. So most teams' backups are
higher paid than Jalen Hurts.
That is the skeleton key to building Super Bowl potential rosters, that rookie quarterback.
Yes. Now they'll have some shit to figure out when they pay him, $250 million or whatever it's going to be.
So okay, this league, we shouldn't take too long because obviously we still got some games to go here, but like, does that lead to the next analytical question is, could a team with a Super Bowl contending roster and a good quarterback simply draft a quarterback early because the talent is there and they want the potential to not pay up?
Dude, that'd be insane. I mean, obviously it depends on what happens in the playoffs with the Eagles, right? It's such a fun conversation because it's kind of a quandary. I've heard people and my buddies like they should draft. They should draft. What's the running back for Texas's name? Bijan.
Please don't do that. No.
Right. And I'm like, there are people out there that are saying, and they're not wrong, that he could be a generational talent at running back. But we said the same about Barkley and everything. And now look at Zeke's contract. But the point was like, oh, you draft a running back and then you pay him way less than anyone else. Problem is, you could just draft a running back behind this line in the 3rd or 4th round and probably still get excellent production out of them, and then draft a corner or an edge rusher like you need. But when they pay Hurts, they're definitely going to need to figure like they have some good guys waiting in the wings as well. They do. Like there's some good players. You got a center waiting right behind Kelsey that's been learning from him. Some good players. Don't get me wrong. It is going to be really interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if they just stockpile more picks and trade out of this, what's going to be a top 10 draft pick.
I think that is the move. I would have if I were a Philly fan, I would have so much faith in the long-term viability of that front office. They just, even as short-term as they must think in a season like this, they have a plan long-term. I'm just not concerned with Howie Roseman.
It's true. And unfortunately, you can't sign Sanders, but it pleases me, Matt, to no end. You know this. That like in what's very likely to be his last year in Philly, I was finally vindicated.
He's a good player and elevated to a fantasy star in the context of a great offense.
Makes me happy, man. For him too, because he deserves it. All right, let's move on here. We're making I'm very proud of us today.
Doing very well, honestly. We
have 4 games to go. We're doing better than we usually do.
Wow.
It's amazing. Hit that thumbs up if you appreciate our efficient use of your time. It really is appreciated. Hit that thumbs up. Also, check out BetMGM. Dude, it's not a Christmas offer, but it should be because you're getting 2 free months. I love doing this show because people go, well, I can't do prize picks. Well, you probably can do BetMGM in your state. And now all the people that could do prize picks are pissed because with BetMGM, you deposit $10 and you get 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum and up to $1,000 risk-free bet. Not either or. You don't have to pick. You get 2 free months. You got to use the link or it doesn't work in the description in chat. Deposit $10 or more, but only has to be $10. Take that 10, put it on any team, any game. Don't do a boost, an odds boost or a parlay. I'm assuming an odds boost is not going to be credited. Someone told me it wasn't. Makes sense. It doesn't make sense. And it's definitely in the terms and conditions. I know that, but I'll do the work for you. I'll do the heavy lifting for you. Put it on a game. The bet doesn't need to win. All that needs to happen is you put that $10 or more on a game. Once it settles, you're getting 2 free months to cast a $240 value. All of our tools for every sport and our premium Discord for 2 straight months. That's like no strings attached. And then you can cancel anytime you want. And you also get up to $1,000 risk-free bet. So even if you only have 10, if you lose that bet, you still get $10 back in free bets. If you want to put 100 in, make a $100 bet, you still get 100 back in free bets if you lose. Legitimate no-brainer, Matt. There's no 2 ways around it.
You got to do it right. Don't double dip with the double offers. Use the right link in the video description, but it is a fantastic way to get in there. Great offer.
And we'd love to see you guys in our Discord and part of the community too. There's so many great people that come and watch these shows. Maybe you're not in a position financially to get in on it right now. I understand that, right? Like it's not a cheap subscription, but here's an opportunity to do it and join. And who knows, maybe you hit a few massive wins or even one, and you can continue to stay a member, stay part of the Stokastic family. So check it out. And we'll see you over there. BetMGM link is in the description. Just follow the steps, deposit $10, put that 10 or more on any game. All right. Arizona, Denver. Dude.
Yeah.
Cole McCoy, Brett Rippon, maybe. I don't think Wilson's going to play.
I think that's how I'm seeing it as well. Just brutal, that Kyler injury. I was on Live Before Lock with Neil, and we were still chatting in Zoom. But we were still on the call when we got the notification that Kyler was down. That's how fast it happened, that kickoff. It just sucks for that team. Not that they were going anywhere this year, but now the concerns for Kyler bleed into next year. I guess they still have Hopkins available to them. They still have Marquise Brown. The expectations are just, the ceiling is like 15 to 18 points here. Connor's the only one who I could see, them just handing the ball off a ton. That touchdown was impressive where he got hit at the 5 and still managed to leap and score. And I do think he'll get the opportunity value, but Denver's defense is the only thing that's worked all year. And while I was happy to see Denver suddenly score 28 against the Chiefs, we can't say that is anywhere near the norm. I'm still at the point where giving them a 19 to 20 point implied total with the uncertainty around Wilson is generous.
Yeah, I think you're right. I said in the betting video that I think I'm still taking the under in this game, even though it's at 36. Like,
it could be 17-9 or something like that.
Like every other game they played this last week was an exception to the rule by far for Wilson and for the total. And the total, because, well, Denver defense collapsed, and that's because they're facing the best quarterback in football. And Wilson actually looked competent for the first time, literally all season. So I just don't want to target this game, man. It's not a game that I'm looking to get to. I know some people might talk about Latavius Murray, or like, do we go back to Jerry Jeudy? I'm not sure I want to chase Jerry Jeudy here. It's the one good, like, it's still just one game, Matt. That's my hang up. It's still just one game.
If you feel like they turned the corner, especially if Russell Wilson does get back on the field, you can play it that way if you want to. Their matchup isn't so bad from a metric standpoint. Arizona's defense isn't good. And Latavius gets the opportunity value where if he does find the end zone, he probably hits pay dirt at 5,100, but we're not talking about 20, 25 point potential from this running game at all. Happy to see it with Jeudy. And one thing I will say, he's not popular. The expected ownership right now under 5%. That's the only reason I'm playing him, is because he's going to be a contrarian option. And at least that's the way our tools see it right now.
Anything else for this one?
It gets even more complicated if Sutton does get back on the field. Greg Dulcich is currently in that viable category, but if he gets more popular than this, right now he's at 9%, tight end 3. If he hits that double digit point, I might just say no.
Okay. New England and Las Vegas. I want to just preface this for you guys. Patriots laying 44.5 point total. I want to preface this with, again, we're doing this show on a Thursday. It's a 12:28 Eastern right now. A lot is going to change in it. We're going to get a lot more clarity on this game. This is what I mean. Ramondre Stevenson hasn't been practicing, probably doesn't play, but we don't know. Damian Harris is limited. Jacoby Myers is limited with the concussion. And then Devontae Parker isn't practicing with that concussion. On the other side, Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller were both designated to return from the IR, and we don't know if they're going to be active this week. So to say that there are some moving parts in this game would be an understatement, Matt.
Yeah, look, I think that the way I'm reading it, Stevenson doesn't play, Myers doesn't play, and Renfrow and Waller do play, which is annoying because
I was thinking Myers plays and Stevenson doesn't play.
He's still out though. Myers is still not practicing.
No, he practiced limited, I thought, yesterday.
Oh, he did? That changes my opinion a little bit.
Pull that up. I think he was limited and Parker didn't practice, I think.
Returns for the first time, limited in practice.
So I think there's a shot.
Okay. But it probably means he has not cleared the protocol fully yet.
What's his injury? Is he, is Myers concussion too?
Yep.
Okay. Anyway, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, so ultimately what's really annoying here is that we had a fantastically concentrated offense in Las Vegas with Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams. And anything that takes away from that, anything that creates more uncertainty, makes both of those players tougher to pay up for. Simple as that. They could still hit salary-based expectations. We have Josh Jacobs right now as the running back 1 and Devontae Adams as the wide receiver 1 in our projections. And neither of them have crazy high ownership, about 15% for each of them. But the bottom line is, if you've got those big 4 weapons back in the fold, they're going to trade big games again, like we expected at the beginning of the year. We'll get more clarity before Sunday, but if New England, I actually think if New England has neither Stevenson nor Myers, I will just ignore that offense and just take some shots on Las Vegas. New England's defense is tough, but not so tough that I can just completely move away from Vegas.
I get it. Chronic Smith made a point that Matt and I were talking about before the show. I want to bring this up. He said, I've noticed this season post Tua, many concussed players are missing a week, unlike previous seasons. So this is what I was saying, Chronic, is I think what you're seeing is if they get to if they practice like a Tuesday limited and then full practice Wednesday after being concussed on a Sunday, I think the chances they clear are very high. And they were probably held out of a game on Sunday or not allowed back in a game on Sunday because now it's so stringent around these concussion protocols that like maybe it wasn't that bad. Tyler Huntley might be a good example. But yeah, then you see the other ones that aren't practicing at all on Wednesday and haven't gotten on the field. It seems like we have a decent indication, Matt, that if you're not getting on the field till late in the week or at all midweek, you're less likely for sure than the guys that are practicing on Tuesday and Wednesday, even in a limited capacity.
Oh, how terrible clarity based on practice designations about whether they'll play or not. I mean, this is one of the things that drove me nuts about the NFL for years, where people would be a DNP on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, not make it through the walkthrough, but because of their status, they're suddenly good for Sunday. Like hogwash. If you can't make it through a workout in shorts, a walkthrough in shorts, just sit out an NFL game for a Sunday. So I actually like the clarity standpoint, even if behind the scenes it's because they have a new process in place.
Agreed. You want to talk about Tennessee and the Chargers? Or is there anything else you want for this game?
Look, if Myers is back and Parker is out and Stevenson is out, Myers is at a fine salary at $4,700, but I still think the answer might be no for New England.
Okay. That is interesting, though. Jacoby Myers, if he plays and Parker's out, and Stevenson, who leads the team in target share over the past, 6 weeks?
It's not even close, too.
No, it's 26% to 20 or something, the next closest guy. That intrigues me a lot. Jacoby Myers would be very interesting. And so, honestly, so would Damian Harris if Stevenson's out. How expensive is Harris? Are we getting a good price on him?
Sorry, I pulled up Tennessee real quick.
Oh, you're good. Harris is 5,800.
58, yeah.
I think that's pretty reasonable. Las Vegas defense is not very good.
The matchup is really that. So if he gets all the touches, but I still think that Kevin Harris and Pierre Strong would kind of mix in because they played decently in Stevenson's stead last week.
It's possible. And it's hard to say with Bill Belichick.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Tennessee and are there 26 people out there that are capable of hitting that thumbs up? Would love to get us to 100 before this show is over. Jordan, hit that thumbs up on your side. Matt, hit the thumbs up. Get us there. If you haven't done so, I do right at the beginning. First thing I do, hit the thumbs up. I like my own show like an idiot. But every little bit helps. And subscribe too. How about let's get to 100K? One day we're going to hit that. Tennessee, Derrick Henry's super interesting to me for a reason that may surprise you. The fact that Dontrell Hilliard is out is very, very, very interesting because they don't have a lot of pass catching options. The Chargers, on the other hand, are just capable of collapsing all the time. Like I said, I bet the Chargers are them when they're a dog, especially when they're a big dog. Whenever they're home favorites, I have some real reservations about going there. They were home favorites against Seattle, big home favorites, got trashed. Huge home favorites against Jacksonville, got trashed this year. Home favorites against the Broncos. It took them overtime to win with a 19-16 game and a field goal. The only game they've covered as home favorites was week 1 against the Raiders. And we know the Raiders actively find ways to lose games on their own. So Dontrell Hilliard is a guy that's going to see some pass catching opportunities. He's out. Henry ran 22 routes last week, and that was still with Hilliard playing 20% of the or 13% of the snaps. I think you could be staring at another 5 target game for Henry. But even if you don't, this Chargers run defense has sprung some real leaks at times. And I'll put it to you this way, Matt. I'm not of the impression, man, that Chargers run defense is so bad. Oh my God. I didn't realize they'd been gashed that bad. We'll get there. We'll get there. I'm not of the mindset that just because a team has looked terrible in back-to-back weeks and it looks like they have, collapsed into their own footprint. I'm not convinced that just continue. Mike Vrabel's still a good coach. To assume that it's impossible for them to figure something out against a Chargers team that always allows teams to keep things close. I still like Derrick Henry a lot this week, to be honest. And I'm not going to go into this going, or I'm not going to come out of this week going, man, I thought the Titans were dead. Why didn't I play Derrick Henry?
And look, let's move out of the player evaluation zone for just a second. Obviously, those are good players you just mentioned, but from a game environment standpoint, this total right now is up there with some of the best totals we have on this Sunday slate. I see 47.5, but the highest I'm seeing right now is 49.5.
Oh yeah,
So,
it's up there.
So if you get to Sunday night and you realize that this was the shootout game, this was the one you needed, don't be surprised, because these defenses are not what we thought they would be at the beginning of the year. Could this be another 30 opportunity game for Derrick Henry? We haven't seen him get up to 30 opportunities since week 11 against Green Bay. But the fact that that's in his range of outcomes is different from every other player on any football field this Sunday. And look, it hasn't been a great year if you're looking for that 35-point potential for Derrick Henry. But let's not pretend 27 to 30-point potential isn't here either. They're 17th, the Chargers are, in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position. The only thing that's annoying is that the rest of the field looks like they're going to be gravitating towards Henry. He's number 1 among running backs in our ownership projections. 1 in 4 lineups expected to happen.
That surprises me.
It's a good
place. I
still
like him.
Yeah.
I still like him, but good points. Man, this run defense. I didn't know it was that bad recently. Like, they have allowed a 200 plus rushing yard game to Cleveland, 213 to Seattle, 200 to Atlanta, 157 to San Francisco, 163 to Kansas City, 181 to Arizona, 150. I'm just going down the list. 154 to Las Vegas.
All right. So what's Derrick Henry's prop to break 200 yards? Let's check it out.
Dude, that's, it would still be, I mean, like plus 600.
Yeah, I gotta look at it now.
Let's see. I wonder if there's some alt rushing totals up yet. Like, they don't go that high, but I think they go to 120.
They better have 200 for the big boy Derrick Henry.
You think they would?
I'm trying to navigate there. Are they off?
I can't imagine they would. That'd be crazy though. Let's see. We're at rushing props. Oh, we don't even have one for Henry yet.
Wow. Okay. It is off the board.
I wonder why. We have everything for, we have a bunch for the Chargers. I know they're healthy, but like Tannehill's going to play. I don't know. That's weird. What do you think his rushing props going to be? You think it'll be over 100?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I think it's going to be like 110 and a half.
Wow.
Maybe 105.
Okay. I could see that.
He's at 132, 117, 38, 155 total yards. And so much of it is on the ground. Honestly, one way you might want to say is that you could fade his rushing yard prop because he might actually have more total yards because of Hilliard's absence. Yeah. But in DFS, we don't care how he gets it. In fact, receptions are better.
Dude, give me Derrick Henry receptions all day long. If it takes away a couple opportunities on the ground, doesn't matter to me. But I like him. I think Okonkwo's fine, but last week was just much better. 2,700 last week. Assuming Burks is out, and I'm assuming he's out. I am assuming he doesn't play this week. Any pass catching options stand out to you? If not, we can go to the Chargers.
I actually think Okonkwo is back on the value train. Look, I'm not gonna be overly assumptive, but I don't know if you saw the Millie Maker winner thanked a bunch of different people last week. I think you got thanked in there. Mm-hmm. And I went back to our conversation about Tennessee Jacksonville. And we closed it out by saying, I think probably the best way you want to do this is Derrick Henry with Shigo Okonkwo. And if you need a run back option, I think Evan Ingram is probably your best option. That sounds, that worked out pretty well.
Did I was all over Okonkwo. I know that, but I didn't mention Ingram. Did you mention Ingram?
Yeah, right. Like literally on the way out, it was like the best way to do this is Henry Okonkwo. And then I think Ingram on the way back.
Love it. We should have clipped. We should clip that.
Maybe we should find that one. Yeah.
Clip that shit. Yeah. Because I talked to Neil. I was like, how many people had the double tight end with Okonkwo Ingram? Crazy. Yeah. Crazy stuff. And congrats on that, Millie. That's
Chronic remembers. Hell yeah.
That's awesome. That's good stuff. I tell you though, with the Chargers, there's a lot of ways you can go here. The Tennessee run defense is suffocating. There's no doubt about that. But Eckler has so much volume in the passing game. You have Mike Williams, you have Keenan Allen. I think there's a number of different ways you can go here. I agree with you that this game could absolutely shoot out. I want pieces for sure of this passing offense. I'll have some Eckler, but Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, I think everybody makes a lot of sense this week for the Chargers.
Absolutely. Tennessee 28th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing receiving cores, I should say. If you look at our projections right now, both Allen and Williams have projections ahead of salary-based expectations. And only because of the high projection of Derrick Henry does Austin Eckler look so-so in our tools. Tennessee right now is a bit of a pass funnel. They're 5th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position, but Eckler is a little bit of a different beast, right? Because they'll swing him out wide. They'll use him in the passing game if he's not getting going. They're not going to just run him between the guards for 3 straight quarters. He's at 20 expected fantasy points per game. That's number 1 among all running back, all at the running back position. I think Herbert Eckler, as in terms of like a quarterback running back stack, might be one of the most viable QB RB stacks in the entire NFL right now.
Me too. I love it. I love anything from this team, to be completely frank. I think there's plenty of ways to go with it. I really do.
Palmer and Everett too, right?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. This game could get real weird. Like the Chargers get involved in these odd games all the time against teams that, shouldn't be able to produce big numbers against them, shouldn't be able to throw well. The first one that comes to mind is that Cleveland Chargers game that was a massive shootout, and everyone's like, oh, Baker Mayfield, and then when you have Derrick Henry. So like for me, I love Derrick Henry this week. I know he's popular, still love him. Don't think he's overpriced. On the other side, Eckler, Keenan Allen, just a PPR monster against a bad secondary that's been absolutely torched in back-to-back weeks by Philly and Jacksonville. And Mike Williams with the deep threat. There's a lot there. Even Everett and Palmer, like you said, clearly secondary options, but they're there. It gets a little uglier when you get, go ahead.
This is another one where even though it looks like it's in the mid-tier of totals, not this week, this could easily be the highest total game on the slate.
You're talking which one? The one we're going to get to, or Tennessee, LA?
Tennessee, LA.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Cincinnati, Tampa Bay. T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd played 1 and 2 snaps respectively last game. They got limited practices in. This is interesting because like if they end up sitting, Jamar might get a 20 target type performance in this one. I'm not really thrilled about this game though. I can't go to the Bucs. I just have very little faith in this offense right now, since he's a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And I think the Bucs defense will still bounce back at home after that awful performance. How do you see this game? It's the last one we've got on the slate.
Here they come, man. Cincy has shown me something, especially with the injury to Lamar Jackson. So Baltimore clearly falling off, both teams 9-4. The way that Cincinnati has ripped off this win streak, you said it. Joe Burrow looks like a Super Bowl quarterback when he steps on the field these days. And now with a 70-point differential, a defense that's top 10 in the NFL by many metrics, I think they're facing a team in Tampa Bay who's headed the exact opposite direction. I'll admit it, I was wrong about Tampa Bay's offense. I thought they had kind of figured something out. They got smoked by San Francisco, and a third-string quarterback was able to put up 35 on this defense. I think Burrow could do the exact same thing here, and we know where the ball's going, especially if it's just Chase and Higgins on the field. Going to be taking plenty of shots in large field on Higgins, but man, the Burrow Chase single stack, it's almost too easy. Tampa Bay is 19th in adjusted fantasy points allowed, and even though it's a little bit expensive, I don't think it's too expensive. I really like Jamar Chase this week.
Me too. I don't know how I feel about the backfield though.
Mixon and P. Ryan are going to share a backfield the rest of the season, in my opinion. P. Ryan is in on third downs. He's in on high leverage plays. He's at 12 expected fantasy points per game over the last 6 weeks, which includes some games where he was the main guy and some where he mixed in. And Mixon has never really seen that same level of opportunity value that he saw in the beginning of the year so far. One thing I will say, he's run real hot when he's been on the field. He's at a solid fantasy points over expected per game. but his projection looks terrible. Right now, we have him at running back 12. He's running back 4 in terms of salary rank.
What do you want to do with Tampa?
Cry. I don't know, man.
Are you giving up after last week?
You can make a case for upside when you have players with the pedigrees of Tom Brady, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans. Do they jump off the page? Not really. Leonard Fournette? Not really. Even Rachaad White, who I kind of thought our tools might like a little bit better at just 3% expected ownership. When you have this low of an implied total and suddenly the team expected fantasy points goes down the drain like this, these tertiary options are really tough. I think maybe Godwin as like a 6,700 value piece, like a one-off, might be one of the only ways I play this. I'm not going to be game stacking a whole lot here.
Me neither. I don't like this game all that much outside of some Jamar Chase.
Yeah, right.
Hey, we did it, man. We did it.
In like easy time.
That was a fun show.
Painless.
That was a fun show. Absolutely. And we got over 100 likes. We're in business. This was a lot of fun. As always, follow Matt at Draftaholic, me at Lafayette_D. Shout out to Jordan Klein. I know he's just done like 3 straight hours on the producer's chair, so he's going to go take a break. Are you on tonight, Jordan? All right, go take a break. Man. Whatever you got to do. You guys are the best. We'll be back. I'll be back with Alex tomorrow. Actually, tournament strategy for Saturday's slate.
Oh,
are you on? Are you on Saturday live before locks or anything?
I am. Lindquist and I on Saturday live before lock. I'll be there.
Awesome. And then we'll see you back here Sunday. It all culminates with Sunday 4-hour show. We got you guys covered from top to bottom. NBA live before lock, deeper dive tonight. Matt and Neil on NFL live before lock. After that, plenty going on, and we'll see you back here for the next one. Peace.
See ya.
Not bad. Not pretty efficient. 13 games.